about his. This is a brief interview, but kind of the highlights of his career and how he made a very specific transitions into writing and scoring for a television and coming into that from being a touring and a session musician. So those types of transitions. Okay. Uh, Kevin, how's it going?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. All right. Okay. Okay, yeah. I guess my first question is the one I just asked. How did you transition from a touring musician to writing and composing for film and television or television?
Okay. Well, in the world of Los Angeles, 1978, 79, there was a situation. Tuesday Production, a production company in San Diego, and they had a lawsuit against the union, the American, Federation in Los Angeles. So basically, why I said that is because after that scenario happened, and they won the case, it was about $5-8 million that the union had to pay out. What happened is it started having independent companies doing business as independent companies instead of being an affiliate of the union and all that scenario. So because of that, what happened was synthesizers were coming in late in the 70s, and friends of mine that had Synclavier basically were being called to go into doing sessions and replacing, or wanted them to replace all orchestras in movie dates because they thought it would be cheaper. But from the programmer point of view, the synthesizers, players and programmers, it wasn't actually cheaper. It was actually harder. So they tried to develop a scale on that, and that kind of started going left as far as studio musicians doing sessions. So as electronics got more inventive, what happened was, which I had made a statement to you before, when Michael Jackson came out of what was it, 80s, mid 80s with Thriller, all that, it changed the perspective of the music industry, especially for bass players, because synth bass came in. Once synth bass came in and became part of the sound for records, 80s, 90s, all that, all the techno stuff, dance stuff, all that. I had called a friend of mine who was one of the synthesists that I was talking about, that was doing scoring for well-known composers, not trying to eliminate, but basically eliminate the orchestra and the big movie scoring from electronic point of view with electronics. I had called him and basically asked him, what I should do. And he said, if you write, have you written? I said, yeah, I wrote in college and in high school. So he turned me on to Spud Murphy, which is a equal interval system. Studied with Spud probably 3-4 years as I was on the road with Aretha. And basically at that point.
Wait, I have to, who is Spud Murphy?
Spud Murphy is a teacher that taught a lot of people, basically probably in the 50s, 60s. He taught Herbie Hancock, Benny Maupin, and several other jazz notoriety people. They went to him because he had a different approach harmonically, how to basically write off the overtone system, which was equal intervals. That was the name of his course.
Okay.
So basically, a lot of the jazz guys went to him because it was a totally different twist than they had learned either in college or wherever they had studied from. So I went to him basically and started getting my feet wet. And at that time, I had basically done Me, Joy, Heredia, Billy Childs had done a demo for Dominic Messenger at NBC, and he got the gig as a music supervisor for what was it? Oh, Santa Barbara. I'm sorry, I had to look at my plaque up here. So
wait. So that's a TV show, Santa Barbara.
Yeah, it was a TV show. Yeah, it was a soap opera.
Okay.
So basically, what happened is, I was buying synths, all that kind of stuff, D50, DX7 at the time and doing stuff for the library, sound library. That's kind of got me into TV, which I had won 3 awards as a composer on that team for best soap opera of a TV series. In what was it? It was 80, I think it was 85, 86, and 92 that we won. So basically, I started dabbling into that and, crossing over from being a session player, because at that point, Abraham, Laboriel, Nathan East, I would see them doing different dates. We would be in different studios doing dates. Usually I got called to do upright. And basically we became an overdub instead of a tracking instrument, and to the point that basically we were being replaced by synthesizers. So I had went to Spud Murphy, like I had said, studied with him about 3 or 4 years, learned his system, and during that time was writing for TV. So my transition basically started then, scuffling being a classically trained bass player to basically being a composer, which I really never pursued when I was in college. So as the story goes on, as years had started, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and the industry was changing drastically, I got my feet wet composing for Santa Barbara soap operas under Dominic Messenger for a period of probably about 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
By the time I got to 2000, I basically went back to school for multimedia. I live in Burbank, and Burbank had offered courses for adult school, Burbank Adult School, in multimedia. I basically went that learning Dreamweaver, all the HTML classes for doing website, and just where that was going as far as technology. So I really embraced that. As sessions were getting smaller and smaller, colleagues of mine were saying that work was slower and slower, and they weren't able to do stuff because the calls weren't coming in, because basically the generation had shifted, and basically people that were 10 years or 20 years younger than me basically were starting to take over the industry.
Sure.
So you were having people that were going to NYU or whatever, doing a film score for $6,000 to get their credit as a composer, compared to paying somebody $60,000 to do a score. So that transition saw that, and I saw I was at the end of my rope, only from the fact that, the only thing that was stuck was doing live stuff, basically. So, I was on the road with Aretha Franklin for about 22 years, saw the transitions, and hopped on that wagon, went to adult school for about 2 years, learning all the multimedia classes that were available through Burbank Adult High School.
Okay.
So,
well, that ties into that would be, of course, how did this transition affect your skill set? As in what you have to learn to do this, which is what you're kind of going to anyway.
It was a whole different thing. It was a whole thing. I mean, it was like I delve into it head deep, just like if you went to a new classical bass teacher, which you would know. I basically had to start over again, learn technology, was laughing all the time because I could see that there was a window of opportunity for me moving into a composing situation. So now I'm battling with people like John Beasley, Billy Childs, Anthony Marinelli. There was a group of people that were all keyboard players that basically, keyboard players usually end up being composers because they see everything from the piano, and that's usually what they go for.
Right.
So I found my own niche, what I could do technology-wise, and technology was able for me to be able to get over some of the technical situations and technique that I didn't have on keyboards, but by the technology of computers, you can slow something down from 160 to 80, half the tempo, which I would call, Lerno tempo, and able to actually then play some of the stuff that I needed to play in, then raised the tempo up and it sounded fine.
Right.
So, I got reschooled and all that, definitely starting from 2000 on, and built several computers, got endorsed by several companies because I was using the PC, IBM PC protocol and the format of the IBM, which was not really being used in the music industry at that time.
Okay.
So I became a guru building systems to be able to handle what I needed as far as technically and from a technical aspect, that I would be able to do the work that I was trying to do.
So you made it a point to actually build your own computer as opposed to buying something.
Well, buying something, there's a situation with drivers and proprietary situations on an IBM platform. And basically all the software was made for Mac. So what happened is there was a lot of issues using an IBM compared to a Mac. But, I basically pushed through it because I was building everything myself. It was costing me 1/3 of the price than going to Fry's, Best Buys, or whatever stores at that time. And the problem with those is that they had so much junk on the computer. Basically, you would buy a computer like that, have to wipe the hard drive.
Right.
Because you had too many stuff that didn't have anything to do with what I was doing.
Right.
So it was easier to build and set up drivers and all that from scratch so that it would be dedicated as a music program and music computer than buying something off the shelf, because buying something off the shelf didn't work.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you have to build everything proprietary to the hardware and software that you're using for a musical scoring application.
And dedicated to music production.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Because we really weren't into video at that time. It wasn't really happening. It was hard enough just trying to get when I was doing Major Dad, which is TV series back in the early 80s. Basically, they had a 15 gig hard drive that looked like a Leslie speaker for a B3 organ that only had 15 gigs.
Right, so it's a gigantic thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, for 15 gig, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how it was. Now you get 15 gigs, you can get that on a zip drive, but that's where technology was. So my transition, as I kept doing on the road, in and out of town, writing exercises and homework assignment for Spud Murphy and submitting stuff to Santa Barbara, basically all that was going on, and I started to get my feet wet. So basically I pursued that. And as studio work got slower and slower, the bottom line, the only thing that really kept me going was basically running out on the road with the Queen of Soul and catching, road money, and then coming back and submitting, stuff that I was doing as far as cues or sample libraries to the people that I was working for. So what happened was I went on the road conducting for Ben Vereen for several years, and also as a sideman. And eventually what happened was I finally got off the road physically because I just couldn't handle it anymore. I have a disability, and it got to the point it was just getting too hard. And TSA came in and was hassling you about what luggage you're using and all that. So
totally.
Basically I quit, got off the road, and one of my students that I had mentored that went to Northridge called me. His name is Ryan Neal. Called me and saw that I had a Facebook presence and asked me to have a meeting with me. So he wanted me basically to start doing what I was doing in the 80s for his company, Alanet Music, and basically started doing cues again, which definitely took me a year to get together because I hadn't really written for about 8 years because I was a road dog, as you could call it, road dog, and running, doing studio. And so it took a year. I had to retrain my brain. I had to buy new equipment. I had to shut my mouth and take orders from somebody that was 15 years younger than me.
Right.
That was the game. But he had learned what he had learned in school. So, he knew more than I did, basically, where the marketplace was, because he had just got out of Northridge, you know, he was hot to trot.
And what year was this around? What are you talking about?
About 2008, if I remember, between 2008 and 2010.
Okay.
So we sat down. He told me what was going on. He wanted me to get some other writers with me and all that. Made the deal and started pursuing that. So the first year, I wrote about 500 cues.
That's a
And
lot of music.
pardon me.
That's a lot of music.
Yeah, I did 500 cues. I mean, every day it was a job. I get up at 6:00 in the morning, work from 6 to 6 or 6 to 8 or 6 to 10, because that was the only way I knew that basically I could generate revenue coming in, reuse money for writing for TV. So
are these specific cues, or are you just writing like short pieces, or these like vibes or like soundscapes? What are
no,
you?
these basically what it is. There's examples that directors and producers want for their shows. So usually they give you examples of what they want or what they're looking for. So basically you're doing takeoffs of whatever, but obviously doing your own twist on it so there's no copyright infringement.
Gotcha.
So basically did that, and as I got better and as revenue came in, I upgraded my systems. And I basically switched over to Mac because Logic was bought by Apple, and they definitely got rid of the IBM platform because they didn't want competition. So I had to switch. I had to totally go to Mac, switch over, and it took me about a year to deal with that whole operating system and whatever else I had to hook up. But I was ahead of the game. So basically, I would say by 2014, 15, it was really getting bad as far as session work. And some of my colleagues were complaining that there was no work going on. And, I had already crossed over because I already knew there was no work, or there was only going to be work for the select few in that genre.
Right.
So I embraced the technology, which I've always been into kind of technology as a kid, building stuff and blowing up stuff and all that stuff, So it was not a problem. So I embraced that, basically put everything into that. And eventually I got ahead of the game. And eventually I was making more money doing that, sitting at home, than trying to look for road gigs. And like I said, I had already finished doing that just because of a physical aspect. So I was able to cross over. And, some of my colleagues were saying, well, you crossed over. And I said, well, I had to because of necessity, because I had to eat and I had to pay a house note. And, that became my saving grace in my life. So it started basically a new chapter of my life, which I've been doing consistently since around 2008, 2010.
Okay. All right. That's cool, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Kevin Brandon, born and raised, right? Here in LA.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah, South Central. Yeah.
Local, a native, a true Angelino with roots down in Louisiana, from what you said.
Yeah,
right?
you know about the 7th and 9th Ward. You were down there.
Yeah, I used to live down there. That's right.
You know exactly what that's about.
I do. Yeah, it's serious down there. That's
Mm-hmm. So, yep, I'm first generation. Yep, and my grandmother came to New Orleans in 1890. Yep.
Okay.
So it's all good. So that's what's up with that.
Okay. So, well, I'm gonna stop recording now.
Talking to you, Professor Livingston, as I call you.
Yeah, I appreciate the interview, man. I really do.
Yeah, hopefully you got some good information for your class and all that, and hopefully,
yeah, I have more than enough information for that. Yeah.
Okay, and hopefully it'll open up some eyes to some young musicians coming up, for them to maybe change their course of what they're trying to do in life, and possible changing whatever degree that they're going for. Since this pandemic has happened, some of them have totally maybe changed their major.
That's true.
Yeah. So who knows where it's going to go? All I can say is life is short, so make it the best that you can and be happy and have fun, because that's what it's all about. And I'm having the time of my life and making people laugh, and some of the kids that I have to deal with, or my boss, as I call it, he's laughing at me, doing stuff on my phone. I go, man, it's right here. It's I can't even make it any better. And he's just laughing, shaking his head. If anybody could do it, you could do it, and all that stuff. So,
I heard
hey,
that track. That's a great track.
hey,
That's really
man,
good.
I appreciate it. I'm telling you, I was outside with my dog Billy, laying out in the sun, getting some sun. 8 o'clock in the morning after your coffee, and said, "Let me see this, and let me go a step further." And I'm telling you, within a half an hour, I had this thing going in my brain. Didn't even know how I didn't even know how to save it or make an MP3. Then I had to get online, learned it, got the information from YouTube or whatever,
Hmm.
and then put it on my desktop, and basically did a couple of fixes. And he told me straight ahead. He said, "Hey, do this and send it to me. It sounds great." So what are you going to do? You don't fight with technology. You embrace it,
Yeah,
learn it, use it to your advantage, whatever way you can.
I agree with that.